Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to be doing a whip review on some Western Stage Props whips that I just got. Both of these are nylon whips. This one is mine, the pink one is for the wife. This one is an 8-foot 16 plat model. This one is a 6-foot 16 plat model. This one was $120. This one was $90 off of their website, Western Stage Props. I did have them modified a little bit. If you'll notice, the handles are only about 8 inches long on both of these, which is identical to my whip that I've been using in my tutorial videos from Crease and Corral. I wanted it to be as close to this whip as I could get at a fraction of the price. I have never owned a nylon whip before. They are supposed to be very, very good for rotten weather like it is today. It's way too wet out for me to be using my nice whip, which is why I bought this one, because I can't afford to ruin a $600 whip. I can afford to ruin a $120 whip. So, with that in mind, let's get started. I have never owned a nylon whip before. In fact, I have never messed around with any whip that was under $600 in about 6 years. So, I may be a little harsh in this review, but yeah, let's just get started. First of all, let's take a look at the braiding. The braiding on these whips is very, very nice. I actually wanted them to make a 12 plat whip for me. They said they only make it in 16. And I think there's a good reason for that. This whip is considerably lighter than this whip, which could lead to problems when cracking it. So the extra plats here are actually going to add a little bit to the weight and hopefully keep that problem at a minimum. So there's that. Second thing I want you to look at is the tapering. Every good whip, as it reaches towards the end of the cracker, tapers. If you look at this one over here, the taper is noticeably better in this one than it is in this one. I'm not a huge fan of the tapering on this whip, but again, we'll see how it performs. Next thing I want to look at is the fall. The fall is simply a little piece of nylon, almost like a shoestring type deal going on here. I think there are going to be pluses and minuses to that. Again, no weight, so that could be an issue. However, in rotten weather, you're not going to have to worry about this thing breaking on you or wearing out. I'm guessing this fall here is going to last much, much longer than the leather fall on my Crease and Corral, which I just replaced recently. Secondly, these are very, very easy to replace. As you can see, there's just a little hitch here at the end of the nylon, and then you just tie the cracker onto that, or the fall rather, and then the cracker goes on to the end of the fall. This cracker, for all practical purposes, is identical to this cracker. What else? I think that's about it. So let's take it out and see how it cracks. One more thing I'd like to mention. Supposedly the care for these, they are much more low maintenance than the leather ones are. You don't have to oil it. You don't have to worry about it getting wet or any of that stuff. I am being told that when you're done playing with this thing, all you got to do is wipe it off with a towel and you're done. So very, very low maintenance whip. And again, I got the handle at 8 inches instead of 11. So for those of you out there that do any Indiana Jones cosplay, you could ask for the 8-inch handle, and this thing would actually look pretty good on your belt. You can see it's just a little bit different in color, and that's about it from a distance. They look almost the same. So this would actually be a pretty decent costume piece for people that don't want to spend the big bucks on a nice whip just yet. And then, you know, there's the hot pink version that my wife wanted because, yeah, she's just that way. So we're going to take both of these whips out and crack them today and see how they do. So let's get started. So I'm going to start with the 8-footer that I got for myself, and we're basically going to go through all the cracks that I'm working on my whip tutorial series and see if this thing is able to execute them. So without further ado, we'll just start with lesson 1, which is the sidearm. So, one thing I'm noticing right away is this whip is going to take a little bit more force to get those cracks to execute. If you've watched my whip tutorial videos, when I use the crease and corral whip, I'm just barely flicking it out there. When you do that with this one, you're not getting much of a pop. You can probably tell the difference in the volume. So let's add a little bit more force and see if we can get this thing to perform. Okay, that was much better. You just have to put a little bit more force behind it. So let's keep going through the cracks and see what happens here. Let's start with the underhand crack, which is lesson 2. Okay, not bad. In my whip tutorial series, I mentioned something about having a lower end whip and it being a little bit more difficult to crack. That is going to be the case with this whip. But again, you've got, $120 versus $600. So obviously something to keep in mind. Let's keep going. Well, we will start with, let's see, how about the cattleman's crack? That was pretty awesome. Because this whip is so much lighter, you can almost just crack it like a machine gun type thing. Just really kick those cracks out in a hurry. So that was pretty cool. Moving on. We'll do the overhead. The reverse overhead. Okay, so those executed pretty well. Again, you're having to put a lot more effort into the swing. In my tutorial videos, I mentioned sweeping the whip. This one, you've really got to sweep it hard to get that crack because you need to keep the whip tight. That's a little bit more difficult because the whip is lighter. So, moving on, we will do the reverse sidearm. The reverse sidearm, I haven't even covered that in my tutorial series as of this shooting. One of the reasons I haven't is because it's a very precise crack. This one doesn't execute that crack very well, simply because of the precision and the fact that there's not enough weight on the end of the whip to really get a nice pop on it. So For you beginners out there using a beginner's whip, probably going to have an issue with the reverse sidearm. Moving on. We will do the overhead crack. Okay, that one was pretty good. The exact same principles that you'd use during the crease and corral whip. Only thing is, again, you've got to put a little bit more force behind it and be a little bit more precise. For those of you that are beginners out there, if you start with this whip, once you get a nice one, it's going to be real easy for you. So let's move on to the forward flick. This is going to be another precise crack, so we'll see how this thing does. Again, it's a little tougher to execute that crack with this whip because of the lightweight. The lightweight seems to really be hampering this thing from performing quite the way that I'd like. So let's do a couple of combos and see what happens. We will start with let's do the slow figure 8. Not bad. It's pretty easy to do. Let's try the fast figure 8. Again, not bad. One thing this whip has going for it for sure, when I was doing the forward flick and the fast figure 8, I noticed that the whip nicked me a couple of times. Simply because at the end, you know, it's just not quite as stable as my crease and corral one is, so the end of it tends to flail a little bit. I actually hit myself in the back of the head on a couple of the forward flicks, and I hit my leg on the fast figure 8. However, because of the weight, and because I had a hat on, I barely noticed that it was there. So again, nice safety feature for you beginners out there. If you hit yourself, it's not going to hurt nearly as bad. So there is that. Let's try an overhead with the reverse overhead. Okay. Again, not quite as precise as I'd like. But you can see, you put a little body into it, you'll get the performance that you want. I think that's really all I'm going to cover in this video. I think we demonstrated what this whip can and can't do at this point. My suggestion for Western stage props, Crease and Corral has a steel cable that goes through the length of the whip, which gives it more weight and more stability. I think if we put one of those in this bad boy, yeah, it would raise the price a little bit, but it would also raise the performance a little bit. For $120, I am very happy with this whip. No maintenance. You can use it whenever you want as far as weather is concerned. You don't have to worry about getting it damaged. Very easy to repair as far as the fall and the cracker goes. And the durability of this whip is also off the chain. I'm guessing that I'm probably never going to have to do anything to this whip as far as repairs go. The braiding is also very nice, as I mentioned earlier. And again, no maintenance. You wipe it with a towel, you go in the house. Done deal. So for $120, for somebody who's looking to get into the art of whip cracking, this thing is superb. Let's go ahead and take out the hot pink mess and see how that one performs. Now, just based on what we've done with my other whip so far, I'm guessing this one is going to have a few problems. Again, this is a 6-footer rather than an 8-footer, which means it weighs even less. So I'm guessing that on some of these cracks, we're going to be having some trouble simply because the whip is too short and doesn't weigh enough. But let's see what we can do with it. As you can see, having some issues. Slow it down a little bit. Try the reverse sidearm crack. And again, I think that's going to be nearly impossible with this whip. It just doesn't have enough weight on the end of it. Okay. Let's try some figure eights. And we're tangled in a branch. I'll shoot through the area before I start this video. Okay, basically this whip performed exactly as I predicted it would. The reverse sidearm, nearly impossible. Forward flick, probably not going to happen. The overhand crack, it can execute that. It can't execute the underhand crack. You can do certain combos with this whip. So again, 90 bucks, not bad. Would I recommend this for a beginner? Probably not, just because of the weight issue. A 6-footer made of nylon like this, it just doesn't have enough weight to get the cracks done that you need to get done. But as you can see, the ones that it can do, you can do lightning fast, which was also pretty cool. So, you know, probably going to be a preference thing at this point, but yeah, there you have it. So, would I recommend this one for a beginner? Absolutely not. I would not. You're going to want to be an intermediate before you even think about getting a whip like this one. Would I recommend the 8-footer that I got from Western Stage Props? Absolutely, I would. That is a great, great whip for beginners. As I mentioned earlier, if you shorten the handle, it can also be good for cosplay. The construction of it is great. The only thing that I would change is putting the steel cable through it to try and add a little bit more weight and stability to the whip. But other than that, good deal. So, there you have it. If you're a beginner, I would seriously consider getting that whip. I think it's great. For more advanced people, you know, for $600, for me, it's just hard to beat the Crease and Corral whip. It's just fantastic. But again, for people that don't want to spend that kind of money, that 8-footer from Western Stage Props is fantastic, and I would recommend buying it. So, that's my review. Take it as you will.